your advantage not having to look at my mug. But
No, I've been trying to meet you for like a decade.
well, here we are. I had no idea you were a fan of mine. I've been following you for a while. It's so funny. People just think all of us influencers know each other. Not all of us do. So I'm really
You're
glad
like you're
that
like
we.
OG. You're like the original, like back when nobody was doing this.
Yeah, OG. Does that stand for old guy? So
No.
no. Yes, I've been out here a while. When did you get started?
2015, I started dabbling. I waited until the technology got easy enough for me to use by myself.
We got
You
5
were,
years.
I was telling my fiance about you the other night. I was like, he was doing it when like you had to patch this shit together and make it happen. And it
Oh,
was
check this out.
tech.
Check this out. When I started the Livin' La Vida Low Carb show, that was 2006. The iPhone was not even invented yet.
Yeah.
So I remind people, you had to go on a computer, log into iTunes, type in a keyword low carb just to find my show. I was like one of the first 900 podcasters in the world. Now there's 1.4 million podcasts out there. I'm like, yeah, where y'all been?
I was waiting for technology to get easy enough
Yeah.
for me to use it, and I'm okay tech savvy, not super, but
If in grad school I had not taken an HTML class, I would have had trouble back when I first started because I was doing the HTTP, close thing and just doing making all the like hyperlinks. And now there's a button for it. So,
now there's a button for everything. There's a drag and drop and a button for everything. So,
so guys,
yeah.
this here is Tina Moore, not related, but we might as well be blood brother sister at this point because we have a lot of similar beliefs, not just on nutrition, but things of the world. Wanted to have her on here. The other day we were supposed to have this and you were kind of under the weather. You feeling better today?
I am. I am. I think it's stress finally got to me. So thank you
Yeah.
for letting me delay it.
Oh, girl, I am the king of understanding how stress impacts the body. I think it's why I still struggle a little bit with some of the weight on my body. I need to learn how to manage that better. So I'm constantly, even those of us that have done this a long time, are constantly evolving, trying to figure things out for ourselves. So, of
Yeah.
course,
It gets to you every once in a while. It sneaks up on you too. You think you're managing it fine, and then
yes.
I get this weird thing where my grandfather died of multiple sclerosis, and every once in a while I get a glimmer of it, and it starts with a weird twitch. My thumb will start twitching, and
Ah,
my eyelid will start twitching, and I'm like, "That's it. Everything's canceled." I just shut the shop down when it's rare that it'll creep up. Like I'll go years without a glimmer of it, and then I start to notice it, and I'm like, I'm going to cancel all my responsibilities for the day and sort this out. So I'm
yeah.
twitch free today, so I'm good.
Well, honoring those signals that your body gives you, I mean, that is just like 101 of self-awareness about your health. If you're noticing something different, pay attention. And if it stays around, get help. So if you can't figure it out. So go check it out, you guys. I know those of you watching live here on Instagram, you can see that already, but she is Dr. Tyna, Drtyna, only just came back a couple days ago. In fact, our interview was going to happen the day before, and then suddenly your main account is back. I put both of your accounts in there, so in case they want to follow the backup, Dr. Tyna 2.0, that's the one where I was following you, and then suddenly you're back on your old account. So that was surreal, having your account be gone and then
Oh,
come back. And I experienced that. I didn't tell you this 3 years ago. It was the day before one of my book releases was coming out.
oh
I had
no.
about 45,000 followers on Instagram, and suddenly, poof, gone, deleted. Not just gone, deleted. Like somebody got in there and just removed it, and I never got it back. I put in 6 requests to get it back, and to this day I still don't know why it went away.
Oh no.
So that was before pandemic, before supposedly controversial, although keto is controversial, but for another reason. But yeah, I don't know. It's people think all this weirdness with censorship and stuff just happened. It been happening to those of us in the alternative health space for a long time. So yeah, I was really happy to see you got yours back.
That's crazy. I don't know what happened. It just a badge popped up that said you've been disabled and you have 30 days to appeal.
Yes.
Um, I kind of I threw in the towel immediately. Not threw it in. I immediately opened a second account. I was like, no, I'm not going. I'm not going away quietly. I opened a second account, but I like threw in the towel and just sort of thought, you know what, it's not going to come back. I don't want to. I do not have the adrenal glands at this point to be fighting
Yeah.
battles that are not totally necessary. And I waited about 2 weeks and I was at the rodeo, which I never, like, I haven't been to a rodeo. The only rodeo I've ever been to was the same rodeo, the St. Paul rodeo nearby here, when I was like 15 years old, many, many moons ago. I'm at the rodeo with my mom and my daughter, and my daughter's 21 this year and her ID is expired. And so she hasn't even gone out to the bars or anything, which I mean, I'm glad for that. But she my mom said, hey, we're going to go. There was like an air conditioned corral where you could go have a drink, and we all were hot and we wanted to go in. And my cute little tiny mom, who like comes up to hear on me, total rule follower lady, she said, well, Zoe, just show me your ID that's expired and just ask. The worst that anyone can say to you is no. And I turned around and I was like, Zoe, I have lived by that advice my entire life. Like literally all of my success is based on that one piece of advice, that the worst thing anyone can say to you is no. And so we tried and they said no. So whatever, we went somewhere else. But I woke up the next morning and I was like, fuck this. I'm going to fight. Like, this is my account I worked really hard for, you know? And, oh, are you there?
Yes, I'm still. I'm sorry.
Okay. I can't see you. So,
I can't see, but I'm nodding in agreement with
okay,
everything
good.
you're saying. So
And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to fight this. This account wasn't about, like, I know people found me during the course of the pandemic, but that's not what my whole jam was. I've been online a while and I've been working really hard to grow this. I spent a lot of years doing it. I didn't just crop up and explode, you know, it took me years just to get to 14,000. So originally, so I thought, you know, I'm going to appeal and I'm going to keep appealing until somebody answers me. I just want somebody, I want a human being, right? And I put in the appeal, and then I saw that Trump was bringing his class action suit, which I thought was timely. And that was it. You know, I mean, timely for me I'm
yes,
sure that helped me, is what I'm saying.
sure.
So I did it, and within 2 hours, my account was back on. And I don't know what happened. I don't know. I think I gave a good explanation. I felt it was fair what I said, and I'm not trying to rock boats. I know I seem mouthy and I know I seem sassy, but like I'm really just trying to tell the truth. And it seems like I keep getting a wall put up every time I open my mouth to tell the truth. So
For those people that don't follow you, go follow Dr. Tina Moore. It's DRTYNA. And I mean, I love your style. Like I said, I've been a big fan following you for a while, and especially over the past year and a half, because we needed some common sense of the madness. Because it seems like everything that's up is down, left is right, and it's just there's so many things that are anomalies right now happening, and people think, oh, this is just popped up on the scene, and it's making me really think back, because I've been in this game for 17 years. This has actually been happening for a while on a smaller scale to a lot of us in this alternative health space. It's just now hitting everybody else. And so I know you and I both recently had a similar thing happen. I posted a meme that had a C.S. Lewis quote on it, and I wrote this inspirational post, had nothing controversial in it whatsoever. I'm an encourager, and so I was using this meme I found online. See memes all the time with little words and quotes and things. It got fact checked and actually blurred out on Facebook, and you had the same thing happen to you.
yeah, I got called fake news for an Abraham
Yes,
Lincoln quote, but
yes,
it was a paraphrasing of something he'd said a while ago in older English,
yes.
older American English, and it was my dog's drinking. If you hear slopping of water over there, so you know, I do not agree with censorship in any way, shape, or form. I get what they're trying to do. I get that it's private companies. I get that we're the end users. I get that they can do whatever they need to do. And that was my argument when I appealed, was like, I didn't feel like I had done anything wrong
Right.
except present studies. They just may have been contrary to what the narrative is. I try really hard not to shoot. I know I'm opinionated, but I try so hard not to just shoot from the hip,
Yeah.
anti you know what rhetoric.
Yeah.
Like I try really hard just to like, here's a study, here's what I think it means. Here's, I'm trying to translate information into forms that people can understand. It maybe doesn't always translate the same way. I mean, you and I could translate a study two different ways, to be honest. Like it does come down to opinion, but anyway, we're in a weird world, and um, it's I don't think there's any place for censorship by any means, but also I understand that we could have a free for all going on out there. So I understand why they're trying to put checks and balances in. I just don't understand what their rhyme and reasoning is behind how they're doing it.
Well, and if it's all predicated on science, and you are a very science-minded person, work kind of in natural medicine, and so you know your science, and that's what you do when you post things. Yeah, you're a little sassy. That's why we all love you so much. But like you back it up, and you come on camera with photos of the actual science. So you'll show a scientific paper on the screen, and you'll say, okay, here's what it says, you guys, and here's the interpretation, da, 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 da. So it's not like you're just making an opinion and a statement without backing it up. And even those things are the ones that are getting the of going against the narrative, as you put it a moment ago. To me, real science is hearing everything and then not necessarily a consensus, but letting people say, okay, I'm hearing all the arguments. Let me think for myself about what I believe. That's the America I grew up in.
Yeah, science is a discourse. It only exists if the discourse exists. And I was trained formally in biology. I have a biology degree, and it was, I mean, day one was the scientific method. I mean, we were trained how to think as scientists, not how to just memorize. We were trained to critically think. I remember sitting through classes literally on how to critically think through science and the methodology behind it. And so and we were taught the same in any good medical program. I'm a chiropractor first and a naturopathic doctor second.
Yep.
My basic sciences training in chiropractic college was, well, let's put it this way. I took almost all of both curriculums, and because there was a lot of overlap they made me do. And I will tell you that the chiropractic first year was extremely harder than the naturopathic first year.
Yeah.
And the board exams were extremely harder. So I feel like whatever's coming out of this head came from that. But in naturopathic college, I learned how to find the root cause of things. And so I went through naturopathic college myself because I had long hauler syndrome, and I was trying to figure out how to become more robust so that a virus didn't take me out. I mean, honestly, I had a doctor say, if you one good virus and you're gone. Like those were words spoken to me by a physician at one point. And so I was trying to figure out I realized quickly that terrain mattered. And, I'll speak to this. People, for some weird reason, it's gotten so weird on here. Like, germ theory and terrain theory coexist, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
Like I believe that organisms are somewhat symbiotic until they become pathologic. And what can induce a pathologic state? Trauma, stress, a sick body, a pathologic body, the wrong virus in there, boom, it's a mess, right? And for some reason even within the freedom fighting community, we can't seem to agree. Like, I don't feel like I have a home because most of them are saying viruses don't even exist at all, which is fine. They can believe that. I have been taken down by them enough, and I've seen patients be sickened and die from them enough that I do believe in them. And I think it's both. You have an organism fresh on the scene, fresh into our species. Anytime an organism is introduced to a species the first round, it's going to be really virulent and rough. And then you have a pretty sick society as a whole. I mean, the combination was the perfect storm, but nobody wants to talk about that. Everybody wants to blame it on this or this or this. And it's become really black and white and really polarized and really political. And in my head, I'm just sitting there remembering first year medical school, like, has anyone read a virology textbook recently? Because did we throw all that out? Are we not doing that anymore?
Yeah, last year when all the debate over the therapeutics was happening with HCQ and other things for the, I call it the Black Death, what we dealt with the last year and a half. And the little thing that they're sticking in the arm, I'm calling the hokey pokey, just so you know my verb, how I get around that. And I was amazed. And immediately I was like, science without debate is indoctrinated propaganda. You have to look at it that way.
I agree completely. I had a high school teacher who was an immigrant from East Berlin, and when they were under communist regime, and he taught us US history, which was crazy and cool. But he also had us reading German history books that were written at the same time period. And I was studying German in school, and I went to Germany the year after the wall fell. So I was taught by him how to read propaganda. And I had some really rebellious, critical thinking. Like, I think they wouldn't even be allowed to teach anymore. Some real rabble rousers for teachers. And they had us reading, like, I had a film lit class where we watched Cool Hand Luke and all kinds of films where we like broke down the propaganda in the film. And then I was taking English lit, and we were reading Sylvia Plath and, Kurt Vonnegut and J.D. Salinger. So like, and I was listening to, grunge hit the scene then, and I was living in Portland. So I was like just indoctrinated with rebellion to its core. And yeah. I was right at that age where it was super influential on me, on just like who I am as a human being. And so I feel like I was built for this. I came out roaring, and I do realize, like, I'm a human being, and it's been a big load this year. And so there have been times when I faltered, and there's been times when I've gotten depressed, and there's been times when I've gone dark. And I realize that's all shown up here on social media as it does. But in the end, I'm just like, what people don't get who want to fight against me is that I'm fighting for them. We're all fighting for them too. Right? Why do people fight for their limitations? I do not understand it.
Well, and it's rare people like you and me. And by the way, we have a lot in common, because I was a poli-sci guy, so I've got a lot of those American history knowledge myself. I was alive when the wall came down as well, and was just kind of going to college at that point as well. And I was an English nerd. I double majored in poli-sci and English, and so we have a lot of similarities. I didn't realize that. That's cool. But yeah, people like to walk off the cliff together. I mean, I hate to put it in that many terms because it makes people sound stupid, but we are very much followers, and there's very few leaders.
Yeah. And I think it's because when you try to lead, you get your head shot at, right? The second you stick your neck up, it's like people start taking shots at you. And then it's that whole crabs in the pot analogy. Plus, I think a lot of people's lives don't have a lot of purpose and meaning. And I think they just sort of go along with the flow. And this gave them purpose. And the fear was quite addictive. And we know that fear within a matter of weeks gets hardwired into your amygdala and your limbic system, and it becomes part of your physiology. And so you keep chasing that dragon to get those dopamine hits. So I think a lot of this was like, for the first time in people's life, something exciting was happening, even though it was awful. Right. It was exciting, and they could watch the news and get their dose of fear every night. And I just don't. It's funny, I have like 4 different necklaces that say fearlessness on them. Like, that was my motto trying to get through. I went through chiropractic and naturopathic school concurrently as a single mom in bankruptcy. And so for me, it was always about fearlessness. Like, how do I overcome all fear to the point where, so when shit hits me now, I'm like, what else you got? Like, I may wear out before, but I will not succumb to fear. And I certainly don't. I mean, I haven't watched television. I might stream shows and stuff, but I don't sit down and watch network TV. I don't even.
When all of this went down in March last year, literally I did 2 things. One was for my health physically, and the other was for my health mentally. The physical one was I started taking as a prophylactic high-dose vitamin D3 K2. I'm talking 20, 30K, just to kind of, I didn't know what was happening. I wanted to make sure my immune system was as strong as it could be, and empirically, I knew that would be helpful. I did other things, but that was a big change. And then the second thing I did was I cut off my DirecTV, and I never turned on the television at all. I did not want to expose my brain to all of that. And I was going through a pretty traumatic thing myself last year, incident in my life. I'm now on the other side of it, so I'm much better. But in the midst of it, I did not need, fake propaganda thrown at me to make me fearful when I was already dealing with shit in my life. So I didn't need more piles of shit on top of the shit I was already dealing with.
Real Good Foods is one of the fastest growing frozen food companies in the U.S. Everything they make is nutrient dense, high in protein, low in carbs, and made from real food ingredients. Instead of using processed flours, everything they make is 100% grain-free and gluten-free, which is how they keep their carbs so low. They can be found at Costco, Walmart, Target, Kroger, and in almost every grocery store nationwide. Or you can order online. Check us out today at realgoodfoods.com and at realgoodfoods on social media.
Yeah, I have kind of a standing rule that it has to be funny or I won't watch it. I'll sometimes do thrillers and stuff, but like it has to be funny before I'll sit down and watch it. I don't need extra dark thoughts in my head. I have enough naturally occurring, you know?
A lot of the things I watch now, because I've kept the TV off, I'll watch YouTube and I'll go right to like dry bar comedy because it's cleaner comedy and it tends to be truly funny, really funny stuff. And I'll look old clips of like Jeff Dunham and different people that I know will make me laugh. And you're right, we need to be mindful. And this has been the disappointing part about the last year with the Black Plague is everything about all these practices to make us, quote, healthy, social distance, wear a muzzle, stay at home, now get the hokey pokey, like all these things we've been told to do. Not once did they say go get fresh air. Not once did they say breathe and meditate. Not once did they say all of these practices that could actually make us healthy, including watching things that make you laugh to improve all the endorphins and all the chemicals in your body. Like, to me, they missed an opportunity that if they truly cared about the health of the people in the United States of America, they would have been talking about a long time ago.
Yeah, well, in any country, really, there really was an opportunity missed for humans to. I don't know. Let me back up. I knew this was coming since I was 19. I don't know how. That's a whole other story. But I knew this was coming. My daughter knew that I knew this was coming, and so she's heard about it for a portion of her life. I call it the zombie apocalypse, but I was like, it's coming, and it didn't mean that there was going to be like literal walking zombies. It just meant there was going to be a shift.
I would argue, Dr. Tyna, there are some walking zombies who still have a muscle on their face with the hokey pokey, and they're scared half to death.
Yeah, right. So fear is the real virus, right? So anyway, when it hit, there was this odd relief because I was like, I'm not crazy. I felt it. Like I fervently felt it coming. I knew it was coming soon too. So when it happened, I was like, this is really happening and this is going to get rough for a while because I had seen it. And I'm just trying to be a helper, right? And I thought for sure, I was like, humans are such a mess right now of health in general, overall. And even since I've been in practice, my mentor, I was introduced to naturopathic medicine in like early 90s. So I've been in this a long time, and I watched him fight, and I watched him get made fun of, and I watched him get, venom thrown at him just for talking about basic stuff. I watched him speak at medical conferences talking about ginkgo and just all, regenerative medicine, all kinds of things that were not at all popular. Like now it's at least online, so people are more familiar with it.
Yeah.
This is before that. There really wasn't much of an internet. Anyway, I feel like I thought this was it. I thought the humans are going to rise above. We're going to get the information. The powers that be are going to share the information that we all need. People are going to take it seriously because they're going to want to make it through this. So if they want to make it through, regardless of, and whatever choice people choose, hokey pokey, no hokey pokey, you still have to have resilience. You still have to be healthy for any of these options to work.
Yes.
And I thought for sure, and I, really, like I'm not anti anything. Like I am all for people making whatever choice makes them feel safe and makes them feel sane. Whatever outcomes come from that is on them, but like let people choose. I'm all for choice. But where did common sense go, and why did we not rise up as a species to counter I saw unity. I thought there would be unity and common sense and a movement of universal, like, let's get through it-ness. And that didn't happen.
But it was forced unity of you do as we say or else.
Which is weird too, because I feel like a lot of that traction didn't just come from high up. I feel like it was embraced by the people and they drove it. Like, especially in Portland, Oregon, where I am, I could not believe why I can, because the city's gotten uber liberal. But like, and I was a liberal up until this year. I am shocked at how much they asked for it. They wanted, it's like it gave them purpose. Suddenly they were like, I'm part of something. I'm part of something important. And I'm like, what are you doing, you guys? Like, you're perpetuating this. I went into town yesterday and there were people in masks everywhere. And they lifted the mask mandate like a week and a half ago. And there were still people everywhere, even on the coast here, people were in masks. And I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, we're out. We're out.
Now, there will be people 5 years from now, regardless of what happens, 5 years from now, still wearing a muzzle, just because the fear was so deeply ingrained. You said earlier in this interview, just a few weeks, we're a year and a half in. There's people that it's become, like you said, their mission in life. They love shaming you for not wearing the muzzle, shaming you for not getting the hokey pokey. How dare you hate my grandmother by not getting the hokey pokey yourself? It's amazing the way the language is being used to guilt people, and then nobody has to say it from on high. It's all been now embedded so deeply in the people that have been led to be fearful, that now they are doing the bidding for them.
Yes. Yes, it's interesting. But people always argue for their limitations, even not around this. Like, I just posted a reel of me on my account pushing a sled out on my property. And of course, somebody had to chime in and talk about privilege. And I was like, dude, I was doing this in a like when my fiance met me, I lived in the tiniest little apartment you've ever seen. And I was swinging a kettlebell and using bands to keep myself in shape in tiny cramped quarters on very inexpensive equipment. Like, it's not about privilege. It's about getting shit done, because I have health issues that if I don't manage through strength training, I don't do well. I go south fast. It's like, it's my promise to the people I love that I will strength train. Otherwise I go batshit crazy and I turn into Anakin Skywalker and I think all hope is lost. So it's up to me to carry that load, you know?
Did you hear me? I said, resist the dark side.
Yeah, right. That is an active challenge for me every day, to be honest with you. So I kind of think of myself as like a dark light worker, if such a thing exists. Yes. I'm like a light warrior. I'm not a love and light person. I'm like big black wings and a sword of truth. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these are strange times, and it takes strange heroes and anti-heroes to get through them.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like the second league on the Marvel comics. But anyway, I feel like humans really could have stepped up in unity, and I'm seeing it now, though. I'm seeing it, and I think it doesn't need to be so much. I'm so sad that it's so much of this. I wish it could just be more listening and learning and I'm getting attacks from my own colleagues, like at least once a week, somebody who I knew at some point really well will come into my DMs and say the most horrific shit to me. Yeah. Like horrific. And I'm like, were you in class with me? Like, we studied this together. How am I the bad guy here? How is this pseudoscience?
Yeah. The dystopia has taken hold. And as of the recording of this, when this airs later, the CDC just came out with their recommendations for the fall when the kids go back to school. And if you've had the hokey pokey, no problem, no harm, no foul, you're back to normal. But if you haven't, you have to wear a muzzle. And I'm thinking, how are we like scarlet lettering people any more than that? And the most vulnerable people in our society are kids, and who also are at the least risk for the Black Plague. So it's amazing, the dystopia that's going on.
Yeah, the kid part breaks my heart. We have put adult safety in front of childhood growth. And my background, a big part of it was animal behaviorism. There is no species on the planet that would ever sacrifice their young to protect their old.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it any other way. Like,
I grew up in a world where an adult would throw themselves in front of a bullet to save a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a point here, my daughter turned 21 in April, and she really had, I mean, we had, to truth be told, and she doesn't mind me sharing this, I had literally just dropped my life savings to put her through a really great outpatient program, not for drug addiction, but for depression and suicidal ideation. And we'd just come out of that. Like, she had literally just turned the corner and was functioning again, and the pandemic hit, which was devastating. And she held her own for several months and did a good job. And then all of a sudden she started going downhill again. And at that point, I literally would have thrown myself in front of a bus if it would have meant that she could have her freedom to be a young person, to travel and to have fun and to be out in the world and to be amongst friends. I would have done literally anything. And I just, that's been soul crushing to see safetyism, this concept of safetyism, override logic.
Yes.
Of like instinctual, like we're mammals. We are, at the end of the day, we're mammals. And the scars we put upon our children through this, I don't think are even recoverable in many ways.
I'm about the trauma they put them through, Dr. Tyna, with, you don't want to go to school, you could kill grandma. Like, how sadistic was that? And that was real. They were literally putting that on the news of, well, we can't let kids go to school because they're going to kill grandma. How traumatic. And then the fact that once they locked us down and kids had to be at home and 1 in 4 teens last year tried to kill themselves, and a bunch of them did.
Oh, and I was a suicidal teen. So this is really, that's when I started having, December was rough on me because I was starting to see those statistics. And every time I would share about it, I would get firsthand stories from people.
Yes.
About their own children,
yes.
About neighbors, about family members, from teachers, from a lot of information from nurses in emergency rooms telling me about the uptick in cases coming in there of suicidal teens and young people. And it was just, I don't know, that like made me crumble a little bit. It's the weird thing. People want you to be happy all the time on this platform and be super upbeat and positive, but I didn't come here to be an influencer. I came here to tell the truth, and I just happened to get a big account out of it. And the truth isn't, and I don't think everyone, what a weird, boring world it would be if everyone agreed with one another about everything, you know, like
that. And then if everybody was happy, I'd be like, I'd have to throw in a big old fuck you somewhere to interrupt it. Like, you know me, you read my stuff all the time. You know, I like to kind of go off the beaten path and go all over the place with my work because that's my personality. And I feel like people don't want to see the same old humdrum. So thank you for not being that way and being exactly who you are.
Thank you. And I always appreciate I always think your work is so uplifting. It's real, but it's uplifting. You do a really nice job of keeping things positive while keeping things real too, which is not always easy because a lot of people are just sugarcoating. That was also weird. I get that people have to function in their business. I took a huge financial hit by opening my mouth, and I risked my license every day. And I which I spent a lot of money on and I would like to keep. And I lost a lot. My income was the bulk of my income came from coaching other doctors. So you can imagine what it was like when I opened my mouth with my opinions and most of the other doctors didn't agree with me. There went a huge, massive amount of my income. And the other part of my income was training doctors in regenerative injection therapies in my clinic. And I refused to wear a mask all day.
Yeah.
So I will not be having those trainings anymore until that's all gone. And so and I won't get the hokey pokey for my own health reasons. Right. And so there, you know, people want to have, they want to know that you are or not. It's just too much stuff. It was just too much. Everybody had a different risk tolerance that they were comfortable with. And so that all just got really dramatic. And so I've sort of bailed on almost all of it because I'm like, I'm going to speak my truth. No matter what the cost, I will die on this hill. And I'm not trying to upset the forces that be. I'm not trying to upset social media. It is what it is. And I'm going to try to speak the truth as I see it.
Yeah, I feel bad for the medical field because I know a lot of doctors and nurses and others in the medical profession with what I do, interviewing people. And the horror stories I'm hearing behind the scenes of we're getting a lot of pressure. We're not quite being mandated yet, but we know it's leading to that. And what happens when they say no, they get fired. It's already happening with the Houston Hospital and other places. Like, this has got to go to the Supreme Court at some point, and cooler heads have to prevail at some point, right?
I would hope. I would hope that rationale would, and I've met some really rational doctors through this who, all of them actually had either received it or were for it originally, you
Right.
know, and then they started looking at things and they're like, maybe we should slow our roll, at least with kids. Maybe we should reconsider. It's, again, it's not, this is not anti hokey pokey rhetoric. I'm not, because I actually, I do see some efficacy in it. And I do see that there are some people, especially in the older age categories, who may benefit from it. And some of those at higher risk for the Black Plague,
Yes.
that may benefit it. And as a physician, I'm always objective. I have counseled lots and lots of patients around this topic so far as not this round, because I was no longer in practice when this happened, but just in general around the topic of hokey pokies. And I always say this is a personal decision. Talk to as many practitioners that you trust as possible. Make sure it's the right decision for you.
Right.
Understand that any therapy comes with its own set of risks,
Yeah.
and be aware of what those are. And are those risks you're willing to take versus how scared you are? It's a risk-benefit ratio. For everything we've done through this pandemic, there's risk-benefit ratios, but that's like a massive component to medicine and science, but nobody's talking about risk-benefit ratios and how it pertains to what's going on.
But the risk-benefit ratio has been in every aspect of our life long before the Black Plague came around. And so
Right.
is suddenly informed consent out the window. Why is my decision about what I do with this particular thing in my life? I've had the autonomy my entire life to make choices for my health, and I weigh the risks and benefits and all that, and I make a decision based on that. Why is this one so different? I just don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know if we'll ever know, but I hope that we're still able to have decision making, for autonomy. Like, I think medical autonomy is important for everybody, because
Right.
everybody has a different chemical milieu and not everything works the same in each body. And I did high risk procedures for over a decade, and I stuck needles in people's joints and their spine, and I had to really talk with, and I'm very ethical. And so the therapies I did were only as good as the person's ability to heal well. Meaning, if they were not in good health and they were not in robust healing mode, like if they were the kind of person who cut their finger and it didn't heal fast, then these injections probably wouldn't help them. These were not covered by insurance, and so they were out-of-pocket costs, and they were not always cheap. So I had to tell people straight up, like, you're not a candidate for this. This is not a good fit for you, and based on these parameters. And they may go get it from someone else, and it does or doesn't work. Who knows? But I had to be as ethical and as sound of judgment as I could be, and give them my honest opinion, and give them all the information, and then let them make a choice.
Yes.
In written and verbal form. That's,
well,
so I just feel like we need to have more of that around everything.
Yes. I think the morality argument about the hokey pokey is gross. Like, okay, if I choose not to get it, that doesn't say anything about my character or my morale. I will put up my integrity, character, and morality to just about anybody. I live my life very ethically. So it's a bit insulting that they're separating us. Kind of like I was talking about with the kids earlier. They're going to make some wear the muzzle and others not, based on their hokey pokey status. Like, even in Yankee Stadium, they have a unhokey pokey section. It's like, okay, how about we single out the dissidents in this world?
That's me though. I'm always the dissident. I want to sit there because there's more room.
Well, so I'm a rabble rouser like you. I think that's why you and I like each other so much, is rabble rousers unite. But yeah, I feel this isn't going to end well.
Yeah, I don't know where it's going to go. I know that I've always sort of lived on the outside anyway, so I feel cut from that cloth. I feel comfortable in writing this out, and I have a fiance who's similarly minded. Like, we were always popular and not always liked for our honesty. But yeah, I do feel for people who are in situations where they don't feel like they have a lot of choice because of stress from family. I'm
Yeah.
hearing from a lot of my friends, actually, my close friends right now, it's really ramping up. Their family members, their parents are coming at them. Their siblings, people they were very close to just a few months ago, are now really telling them, like, you're the problem.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from misinformation and from bad scientific explanations. I just think we're getting a lot of poor that's really what I try to do on Instagram. I just try to explain things. Like, I just try to explain them in terms people understand. They can take the information. There's the reference or resource. Go do with it what you want. But let me explain it the way that I understand it.
Yes.
And I think if we just had more people with, but you can explain something 80 times to somebody, and if their headspace is not to listen, it's like hitting a wall. And I feel like there's so many walls being hit. People are trying to argue with loved ones. I'm like, just stop. Just let them do what they need to do.
You guys tried the Paleo Valley beef sticks? These beef sticks are 100% grass-fed and grass-finished. And many of the grass-fed beef sticks on the market today are actually finished with grains. They use beef sourced from small domestic farms in the United States. They only use real organic spices to flavor the beef sticks versus all the conventional spices sprayed with pesticides and other natural flavors from GMO. They also ferment the sticks, which creates naturally occurring probiotics, all great for your gut health. And best of all, they taste amazing. Again, they're Paleo Valley, my favorite beef stick on the market today. Go check them out, you guys.
PaleoValley.com.
Use the coupon code Jimmy at checkout for 15% off your first order. Paleo Valley beef sticks.
Yeah, I was recently on a plane, and there was this younger guy, probably in his late 20s, and we were having to wear the mask. I was dying, by the way. Planes, and you're gonna have to wear a mask on a plane for a little while, guys. So if you get on a plane, just know that's the deal. Although I did find this company called Unmask that's totally breathable, and I was like, whoa, I'm so wearing this the next time I have to go on a plane. But he was like, so did you get the jabby jab, the hokey pokey? And I was like, no. I was just like, no, real quick. And he said, well, I did. And I was like, oh, really? So why? He's like, better to be safe than sorry. And I'm okay. And I'm like, okay, if that's your thinking, good job making a choice. He respected mine. He didn't kind of like try to go, well, what a horrible human you are for not. So, I mean, it's like, you want it? Cool. You don't want it? Cool. It's like, why?
Yeah, I hear you. I'm with you. I feel like we are losing. Well, and people don't respect each other well anyway. I think the internet doesn't help. You got keyboard warriors, and people get very emotionally involved. They're very, people who've been riding this wave and hanging on to that fear narrative for 16 months are very invested in seeing this through. That's what I keep trying to tell people. Like, they're just as willing to die on their sword as we are on ours.
Well, and the thing is, I don't give two fucks what somebody chooses to do for themselves. This is about Jimmy Moore for me. This is about Tyna Moore for you. It's like, why do we have to care? It's kind of like the food thing. I'm a keto guy. So everybody, you want everybody to eat keto. I'm like, I don't care how anybody else eats. Sorry, vegans. I really don't give a shit about what you do in your diet. And just as you shouldn't care about what I do in my diet, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't impact me. So why do you care?
Right. Speaking of that, it's really funny because I don't speak much about diets or food, and I get asked a lot of questions in my DMs and on my posts. Like, what do you think about keto? What do you think about carnivore? What do you think about this? What do you think about no sugar? What do you think about the fruit diet? All these things. And I don't answer because people get psycho about their food. Psycho. Like, they get,
Yeah.
I've never seen people lose their minds. I did a post right at the beginning of the pandemic. I had a huge influx of followers because I had a video go viral. And then I did a post on sugar and its impact on the immune system. And I have this funny little picture I like. It's a sugar cube that's like it's a cartoon. He has little devil horns and a steak, and it says, and I say sugar is Satan. And it's a funny little thing. Oh boy, that wasn't funny. People lost their minds, and I got shadow banned, and I lost 1,000 followers like that.
Yes.
Over a sugar post. And I was like, and if you ever mentioned there's a joke in my household, what about honey? What about stevia? Because like, you literally can't mention restricting sugar in any form without people coming in with the waving the raw honey flag or waving the stevia flag. And I'm like, if you need something that tastes sweet that bad, you
Yeah.
are addicted.
Yes.
You have an addiction. I don't care what it's to. Like, I am addicted to coffee. If someone said no more coffee, I would lose my mind. So that is where I draw my line, right?
Yeah.
And I own that. I own my addiction to my coffee. I'm fine with it. It's not a bad thing to be addicted to. There are health benefits. I can justify them all because I'm an addict. So I'll give you all the studies, right? Because I am an addict to my
Yeah.
coffee, but like, at least admit it and not attack each other. People are, so kudos to you for staying on this keto thing, because you were talking about low carb long before people were ready to accept that. And I'm sure you dealt with a massive onslaught of venom.
Yes, Gary Taubes and I recently did an interview. He has a new book, Case for Keto, and I interviewed him, and he's like, Jimmy, remember when like keto wasn't given any credence, and now it at least has a little bit of credence out there? I'm like, yeah, I know, right? Like, it took us this long to get to here, and so I'm basking in how wonderful it is, and all these people are, wow, it's so hard. I'm like, no, you hadn't seen hard. 2005, 6, 7, 8. That was some rough years. That was post Atkins slipping and falling and busting his head open, and all the negativity and people coming in smelling blood in the water on low carb, and they thought it was over. And then along came paleo and kind of rose back up, real food kind of diets, carbohydrate restricted diets, and then you had keto come after that. Now carnivore. So everything's having its heyday, and it's kind of cool. But yeah, I've seen it for years. And as I was talking about earlier, this is not new, this censorship. They took down the Wikipedia page of people like myself and others that are like so-called cholesterol deniers, because we don't believe the cholesterol hypothesis as written. And so they just summarily at Wikipedia, who have an agenda, took down our pages, and we've never been able to get them back. And so this is not new. I hope people hear me loud and clear that all this censorship that's more blatant now, it's just in our face. We see it. It's been happening probably a decade plus.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it ramped up strongly. I remember in June of 2018,
Yes.
there was a big push, and like Rob Wolf and Dr. Axe and all those guys,
right.
Suddenly their SEO plummeted.
It was the Google algorithm changed.
Mm-hmm.
Where Mercola got hit really bad. 99+% of his traffic came from Google, and suddenly all those searches were gone.
Mm-hmm. And Wikipedia changed naturopathic medicine and chiropractic medicine to have the word pseudoscience in them, and not favorable descriptions of what we do. So I remember that all happening very vividly. And this has all just been a slow, methodical, well, shoot, naturopaths were witch hunted out of existence almost.
Yes.
And then in the 80s, the chiropractors brought a lawsuit called the Wilkes trial against the American Medical Association, and won, because you could lose your medical license as an MD for referring your patient to a chiropractor before the Wilkes trial. I mean, it was witch hunt galore. And so because of the Wilkes trial, the naturopaths made a comeback. Naturopaths don't know this. If you ask most naturopathic doctors about the Wilkes trial, they look at you blankly. But because of the chiropractors fighting back, the chiropractors had a heyday there for a while after that, and because they got inclusive pay parity for insurance.
Yep.
And the naturopaths made a comeback, which I don't think they would have done without that whole scenario. So I'm used to watching people. I mean, my mom, when she was a little kid, she remembers being brought in the back door of a house in Gig Harbor down into the basement with her family to get adjusted. There was a clinic down there, and she doesn't know if it was an osteopath or a chiropractor, but her grandma, who lived to be 100 and something, used to bring her, and she'd get adjusted, and then she'd go home, and her grandma was like, don't tell your parents, because this doctor could get in trouble for doing this. So, I mean, I've sort of been like living that, knowing that some version of this was coming. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons I got out of practice, Jimmy. I knew that my income could not be contingent on my practice, because I knew at any point we may not even exist as physicians the way that we are now.
Well, and I mean, if we go back even further than, say, 2018, we go back way to like the late 60s into the 70s, with all the squelching of the studies looking at how dastardly sugar is for your health. and then this rising up of really bad science as it related to saturated fat being a harm in your health, and then how it pervaded into the government at that point with George McGovern, and then turning into the very first dietary guidelines for Americans, which was low fat, high carb, and horrendous on our health. If you look at the statistics of diabetes, obesity, heart disease, really all the diseases of insulin resistance since 1980, they've all gone wackadoodle on us. It's not by mistake that when you told people fat was an enemy, they were going to eat more carbohydrate, and the more carb caused them more problems. So again, this kind of propagandizing us and using, because they censored good scientists, even people like John Yudkin, what was it, Sweet, White, and Deadly, I believe was his book, got blacklisted. He went to his grave kind of shamed as a scientist when he had it right all along, posthumously. But here we are now 4 decades later, still trying to fight some of that misinformation from 4 decades ago. What impact is what's happening right now going to happen a decade, 2, 3, 4 from now?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the light is going to win, though. And I feel it. I feel like we had to come to this. 40 years is nothing compared to the blip, like it's a blip to, if you look at the long scheme of things. And while we've lived it, I mean, you and I are old enough to remember when almost everybody was a healthy weight, and there were occasionally a few people who had weight issues, but predominantly most people were of a healthy weight. We cooked in lard, we cooked in bacon fat. And then all of a sudden spray on Pam and canola oil came on the scene. And I watched my whole family get sick and obese like that. So I don't know. It's been weird.
Mama had the can of Crisco on the stove, and she put that with everything. I'm like, what is this white stuff, Mom? No, it's just healthy. Just eat it, honey. It's seed oil, and now know what it is.
We baked with it instead of butter. We used Crisco.
The better than butter, and of course, the I can't believe it's not butter can, or my favorite one, Dr. Tyna, is Country Crock.
Yes.
They told us all along it was a crock.
Oh yeah, that pissed me off. I remember when my mom put that on the table and I was like, this is disgusting. I was a kid. I was like, this is gross and I'm not eating it. Where's the butter? And she's like, we're not eating butter anymore. It was not good. And I remember when artificial sweeteners came on the scene, the very first time I tried artificial sweeteners, I was like, this tastes like chemicals. I'm not drinking this. And I refused.
It was the real sweet, the saccharin. My dad owned restaurants when I was growing up, and he had those little oval bottles of real sweet is what they called it, and he would actually put it in his sweet tea. He'd do half sugar and half that so he could use less sugar because it was an expensive commodity in the 80s. And it was like the grossest tea. People, this is so good. I'm just like, no, I taste the chemicals.
Oh yeah, I remember it. My aunt, bless her soul, she's passed away now, but she had type 1 diabetes, and she was a big woman, and she came to live with us for a time, and she lived off of Sweet and Low. And that was really the only packet of artificial sweetener out at the time. I think Equal maybe was around, but it was really pink packets everywhere, Sweet and Low. And she drank Tab, like she didn't drink water, she drank Tab and Sweet and Low. And she was so sick. I mean, she was so sick looking and constantly ill, constantly having infections, could not lose weight, very, very, very overweight, and all kinds of issues in her 40s. And I was like, I was in 2nd grade, and I'm like, it's the Sweet and Low and Tab. Like, that's it. Like, that has to be it. Like, I'm going to put my finger on one thing and call it. And everyone in my family told me to, because I would talk to her about it. I'm like, maybe you shouldn't eat that. And they would tell me, leave her alone. She's diabetic. She needs that. I'm like, but could she just not eat sugar? Like, how about we just don't do anything sweet?
Yeah, I had a next door neighbor in his late 30s, early 40s. He was type 2 diabetic, and he would buy cases upon cases upon cases of Diet Coke in his garage over there. And it gets pretty hot here in South Carolina. And I know that heated up the aspartame infested cans of Diet Coke that he had. And he ended up dying in his early 40s, or late 30s, early 40s. And I was like, okay, you don't just die of type 2 diabetes at that age, unless he had other things going on. And as far as I know, he did not. So I always suspected the Diet Coke was what ultimately got him.
I think there's some kind of crack in Diet Coke, because I have never seen, there is nothing that I have seen be so addictive for patients as Diet Coke. That's the one thing I could not, I mean, it was always women, and they would say, I just have one can a day. And I'm like, have you seen the studies on Diet Coke? Because just one can a day leads to a severe increased risk in stroke in women. So we have the studies. Maybe you should stop drinking it. And there's some chemical that I think they don't disclose in there. Right. I don't know. I'm speculating, of course, but
in the Iraq War, a lot of the soldiers came back with some of these mysterious symptoms, and they went back and they said, well, we dropped off all these Diet Cokes in the middle of that desert heat, and they think that the heat heating up the can might have created some kind of a chemical release that made it even more concentrated and toxic. So these guys were coming back, oh, it's Iraq War syndrome. No, it's called aspartame syndrome. And so, I mean, we don't know, but that was the theory that was put out there.
Yeah. I remember there being some connection between Rumsfeld and aspartame.
Yeah, I don't know. He just died, so we can't ask him now.
I know. I thought about that. I saw he died, and I was like, well, that's ironic that he would die this year. Of all the things he was supposedly, I'm just speculating, but all the things he was supposedly involved in, I'm like, what a year for him to go. It's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird world, Jimmy. I think we just got to hang in there. I feel like if enough of us are bringing the light and telling the truth, and I got to say a big thank you to Instagram for reinstating my account, and I will behave on this account, and I will, I'm not trying to trash anything. I'm just trying to bring reason. And like you said, we need discourse. We need smart people who have historical knowledge of science, having conversations, even if they're uncomfortable.
And we have to be okay with disagreement when you've got logical people making interesting arguments. Yes, there's wacky people. It is still the United States of America. You can say stupid stuff. There's a lot of stupid stuff I still see out there every single day, Dr. Tyna, that I'm like, how is that not censored if this is censored? And so it's just amazing to me. Opening up the discourse is really what you and I are trying to get people to do.
Yes. And I applaud you for it and being around this long doing it, because every once in a while, I hate the online. I love my job, and I love that I've created a life for myself online.
Yes.
But sometimes I hate it, and I'm like, you're such a slave to it. And when you said how long you've been at this, I'm like, gosh, how does he hang in there? What's the take home for me? How do I stay in the game without losing my mind?
The take home is head down and keeping my eye on what my purpose is. And my purpose is people. And it's always been people, and it will always be loving people. And that's kept me grounded all these years, 17 years. And I plan on going as long as the good Lord keeps me alive.
I love it. That's true. My purpose is to tell the truth, to help people. So it's the same. I mean, it's similar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Tyna, we could talk for hours, and I have adored having you on here today. Thank you so much. Guys, go follow her, Dr. Tyna. It's at DRTYNA over on Instagram. Do you have a website? I know you've got the little secret text newsletter thing you do, so go to her Instagram to get access to that. But do you have any other websites you want to share?
Yeah, if you go to drtyna.com, I have a free book there that you can download right now as a placeholder, and that's going to be going away soon, and a whole new website's coming, and a whole new podcast. I hope you'll come on my podcast and be a guest early on, because it's going to be super fun. But the website is a great place to start. Getting the book will get you on my email list, and then I can stay in touch with everybody, and I can be a little more transparent on email than I can on social media.
And guys, she is very transparent in the background stuff that she can't do publicly. So highly recommend you go sign up for all of the ways you can hear offline her thoughts, because you're a very wise woman, and it's a shame that you have to self-monitor yourself, and I hate that word you did. Behave yourself. Yeah, screw you, social media.
Yeah, well, it's life, right? I feel like this has been my whole life. We just have to behave a certain amount to play the game.
Yes. As a myself, I have things to lose, and I get it too. So, well, thank you so much for all you're doing, and thank you all guys for watching here today, and we'll see you again soon.
Oh, I've had so much fun. Thank you for having me, Jimmy.
Bye, guys.
Keto Chow is a customizable shake mix that is also perfect for cooking and baking, giving you simple, nutritionally perfect meal options. Keto Chow. Make keto easy. Discover your favorite flavor at jimmylovesketochow.com.